This week in Michigan football history with Professor Greg Dooley.
Good morning. Michigan has faced off against many would-be Heisman winners over the years. And of course, we've had three men take home that honor since 1935 when the trophy started. On this day in Michigan football history back in 1939, we faced the Hawkeyes in a game that featured two of the most iconic names ever to take the gridiron, Iowa's Nile Kinnick and Michigan's old 98, Tom Harmon. Kinnick, who like Harmon played multiple positions for the Hawks, struck first with a 71-yard touchdown pass. But then Harmon did what Harmon does. He took over the entire game. The man the Michigan Daily called the Hoosier Hammer scored the game's final 27 points on runs of 2, 2, 8, and topped off the scoring by picking off a Kinnick pass and taking it 95 yards to the house. Old 98 also kicked all the extra points in the 27-7 beating of Mrs. Steve Clark's beloved Hawkeyes. Each had fine seasons as Kinnick and Harmon starred on both sides of the ball the entire year. The Heisman race that year basically came down to a choice of the Iowa senior and old 98, who still had a year left in Ann Arbor. When comparing stats, Harmon had more overall yards and led the nation in scoring, and of course whooped Kinnick in the head-to-head game on this day in 1939, for what that's worth. Consider since each man played on both offense and defense, the head-to-head battle had a lot of impact on that game. But Kinnick had wildly impressive defensive stats, with an amazing 8 interceptions for the season in a day when teams rarely passed the pigskin. And get this, to this day in 2023, Kinnick still holds records for season and career interceptions for the Hawks. On offense, Kinnick was involved in just about every point the Hawkeyes scored in 1939 and rarely left the field. So while old 98 had a strong case for the 1939 Heisman, he finished second, and Kinnick took home the award. After graduation, Kinnick joined the Navy, but sadly died in pilot training just days before his 21st birthday. In 1972, Iowa Stadium was of course renamed Kinnick Stadium in his honor. Years later, the Clarks decided against naming their firstborn son Nile, but we're guessing it was on the short list. Oh, and if you were wondering how things worked out for Tom Harmon, they worked out just fine. After dominating the 1940 season, he won his Heisman and later was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, married a Hollywood starlet, became a war hero, became a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and sired the most handsome man in the world, Mark Harmon. I think you get the picture. Go Blue! Beat the Hoosiers. For more, check out WTKA.com and MVictors.com. For the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff, this is the Professor, Greg Dooley.